Okay, it's a continuation of the December 2022. I'm doing 1.3 now. I just want to try and make my videos as short as possible so that at least you'll be able to go through them. Okay, let me read now. Refer to the sources below on land reform in South Africa. So this is about land reform. We are getting information about land reform. So what I want to emphasize, guys, is whenever you've got a question like this makes your life easier. Why am I saying that? Because you have got information to refer to. You have got information to refer to. So basically, when you talk about the land reform, let me try just to give a definition, okay? We're talking about just to redress the unequal distribution of land. It has something to do with the redressing of unequal distribution of land, of course, in particular in South Africa. So there are concepts that you are supposed to familiarize yourself when you talk about land reform, like know what it is. And also, what is the purpose of land reform? Why are we doing land reform? Is to redress the unequal distribution of land in South Africa. You might find that if you look in terms of land ownership, you'll find that it is owned by a few minority, which are the elite, but the majority of the people, they do not have access to land, they do not own land. So that's what it's trying to redress, because there is no equality in as far as the distribution of land is concerned. There is also another concept that you are also supposed to familiarize yourself with, that is land restitution, which refers to claiming back land which was fairly taken from the citizens. We are talking about what happened during colonialism, when the land was taken from the blacks, to be specific, claiming back land which was unfairly taken from the citizen. That is part of your land restitution. Then there is another concept called land redistribution, which is state-owned land distributed to previously disadvantaged citizens, which means the state has acquired land now is giving to the people that have been previously disadvantaged. That's what land redistribution is all about. Then another concept you need also to familiarize yourself with is land tenure, the law that ensures that people who could not own land previously can do so after 1994. You know what happened during the apartheid era, when most of the people did not have access, not only access to land, but access to fertile land. So basically, this is what is trying to be redressed when it comes to the land reform. Let's read now. South Africa currently faces a problem, okay, which means there is a challenge. Let's just highlight bit by bit. As the process of land reform is advanced too slowly, and much of the land that has been transferred has become economically inactive. Okay, so this is the first part. South Africa currently faces a problem as the process of land reform has advanced too slowly, and much of the land that has been transferred has become economically inactive. Okay, different views. This could be another reason as to why we have got this challenge that is highlighted in the first paragraph. Different views cause South Africans to have questions about the land reform. Why? Because like now, despite the efforts that has been put in place, but still it's not benefiting in a way, and the progress has been slow, which means now the South Africans are beginning to question about the land reform. What is the future of land reform in South Africa? Can the process be accelerated? Why are they pushing for it to be accelerated? Because most of the people do not have access to land. That's what it's all about. Will it produce equal outcomes? Whose interest will be served? So these are the pertinent questions that are being asked. That even if land reform is to be done, is it going to benefit everyone? That's what it's all about. We are talking about the aspect of social justice. That's what they're trying to incorporate here, where everyone deserves equal economic, political, social rights and opportunities. That's the aspects of social justice that is trying to be incorporated here. What is the future of land reform in South Africa? Be this process be accelerated? Will it produce equal opportunities? You are talking about social justice. Whose interest will be served? Okay. At a South African agricultural context, a panel discussion on the future of land reform agreed that when it comes to successful land reform, intense negotiations and compromises are necessary. This is in keeping with the 3 pillars of land reform, namely redistribution, the tenure, and restitution. Remember, I've said that when you talk about land redistribution, we're talking about state-owned land distributed to previously disadvantaged citizens. The state has acquired land. Let me give an example. This land has been acquired through the willing buyer, willing seller. There are people who have got land, and the government is in need of land. Okay, so the willing sellers are the people that have got land and are willing to sell. Then the government is the one that is going to purchase the land from the funds which they have. But there is a challenge whereby sometimes there can be a willing buyer without a willing seller. So these are some of the problems as to why it takes time, or it's not being, the results are not realized, or it's going at a slower pace, because there is a problem in relation to there can be funds available that maybe the willing seller can say, no, whatever you want to purchase or to buy my land with is far below the market price. So the willing buyer and willing seller debate is what is delaying the whole process of land reform. So land redistribution, I've said that state-owned land distributed to previously disadvantaged citizen. Let's assume that the government, okay, the state, have acquired land from the willing seller as the willing buyer. Now it has got the land. What it can do now is going to distribute that land to previously disadvantaged citizens, because the government or the state is the custodian of the resources. Now it's distributing so that people have access to land. So that's the first aspect, the redistribution. Then when you talk about the tenure, the law that ensures that people who could not own land previously can do so after 1994. So the attainment of independence in South Africa, it results in the change in terms of legislation, where the people that did not have access to land, now has been put into law to make sure that these people that could not own land previously prior to 1994, they are now able to. That's the aspect of land tenure. They're trying to redress that problem. Okay. Then the other concept that is talking about here is restitution, which I've said that is claiming back land which was fairly taken from the citizens. What happened during the colonialism? What happens? Were there any negotiations? People were forcibly removed from their land, okay, and they were put in homelands where the land was not fertile. You understand? So the restitution now is talking about claiming back land which was unfairly taken from citizens. So these are the pillars of land reform. There's no way you can talk about land reform without commenting or talking about distribution, tenure, and restitution. Okay. Land restitution provides a challenge as funding needs to be allocated to compensate dispossessed communities for land previously lost. Well-managed land reform, okay? These are some of the things that you should take note of. Land restitution. Restitution provides a challenge for funding needs to be allocated to compensate dispossessed communities for land previously lost. Well-managed land reform can create, okay? Well-managed land reform can create assets for the poor, which means obviously we are saying that it's going to help in terms of poverty alleviation. That's what it's talking about. We are saying now, if it's well-managed, if it's done effectively, it's likely to improve the standard or the quality of life. It's likely to reduce the level of poverty. That's what you're talking about. It's likely also to stabilize relationships and promote development. On the other hand, if it is poorly managed, it destroys assets, causes poverty to communities, and weakens the economy. So it's something that is very sensitive in as far as development or the community development is concerned. It needs to be treated with kids' gloves. That's what it's all about. Okay, so if you can see also what is illustrated here, if it's poorly managed, what is happening, and if it's well managed, you can see with the pictures that we have. You can see here there are better standards of living. You can see in terms of housing and everything, which means here there's social justice, if you can say to some extent. Okay, but here you can see there's injustice. Why? Because not all people have got access to land. You can see in terms of the resources and what is happening there. It can be only the minority benefiting as compared to the majority. So it needs to be addressed to make sure that we get rid of poverty, to make sure we get rid of social evils. Okay, what is land reform? So land reform is a process that used to redress the unequal distribution of land. It's a process that is used to redress the unequal distribution of land, or you can say is a policy that to bring about equitable distribution and access to land. Is a policy to bring about equitable distribution and access to land. We are saying now, those people who did not have access to land, those people who do not have access to land, that is part of land tenure, we are saying that it's a policy, which is a course of action that is put by the state to bring about equitable distribution, to make sure that the land is equally distributed. All people have got access to land. That's what it tried to redress. Okay, policy to bring about equitable distribution and access to land. So when we talk about land reform, we are talking about okay, we are talking about equality in terms of land distribution. We are talking about equality. Okay, we are also talking about access. Okay, those are the two terms that actually guide you when it comes to land reform. It's a policy to bring about equitable distribution, bring about equality. It's also a process that is to do with access to land. Who has access to land? Who can own land? That's what it's all about. That's part of your land reform. Okay, according to the extract, what is the benefit of a well-managed land reform? What is the benefits of a well-managed land reform? Okay, so this question, you don't have to guess or to think. You have to go to the extract and look for the answer. That because the question is referring you to the extract. According to the extract, what is the benefit of a well-managed land reform? Let's check now. Well-managed land reform, I'll highlight. Well-managed land reform creates assets for the poor, stabilize relationships, and promote development. So this is where you're getting it from the extract. Okay, so it creates assets for the poor, it stabilizes relationships, and it promotes development. That's why I'm saying if you have got a question where you've got an extract or a source, I mean, it's a chance for you to get the marks. So here, of course, we are getting only one. We have done that. Here we have already defined. You get your 2 marks. Okay, so we are saying now we have got to create assets for the poor, stabilize relationships, and promote development. That's what it does. Then 1.3.3, why is land restitution considered a challenge? Okay, so you can see, if we can go back to the extract again, there is a part which talks about land restitution being a challenge. Land restitution provide a challenge as funding. Okay, as funding. Okay, why is it a challenge? Okay, as funding, you can see here is a challenge as funding needs to be allocated to compensate dispossessed communities for the land previously lost. So that is the answer that is coming from the extract. So already we also have 2 marks. You see, budget funding needs to be assessed, legal arrangement need to be concluded, and so on and so on. So that's basically what we are talking about. Okay, you get your 2 marks. You see, the answers are coming from the source, from the extract. So you have to read to understand. What is the next one? How does B illustrate the successful process of land restitution? You can see here, this is B. People are shaking hands, shaking of hands. I mean, the answer is there, guys. Shaking of hands, you got your 2 marks there. There's no fighting. You can see here, obviously, there are conflicts. You can see there. What else? Peaceful environment, you can see peaceful environment, development that is being shown, better standards of living. So these are some of the things that you can talk about, which means you're also getting your 2 marks. So already from the start, I've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 15. Let's move on. Which factors have caused the process of land reform to advance too slowly? Which factors already from the topic that we have covered under social justice, which is land reform, you know the factors that has caused the process of land reform to advance too slowly. Why is it not moving at a faster pace? Why? Which factors? Why is it slow? Why is it that we are not speeding up to make sure that we address the challenges that we have noted, that people do not have the access to land? Why is it slow, such that we redress the issue, the problem of access to land, the problem of distribution of land to the disadvantage of those people who were previously dispossessed of their land? So the factors, okay, so the question now is, which factors have caused the process of land reform to advance slowly? Okay, what is causing the process of land reform not to happen at a faster pace? Is what has been agreed in meetings, in summits, in convention. Why is it slow? That's what the question is asking about. So number 1, you can say the lack of knowledge regarding the land reform process. How does the land reform process go about? So there can be lack of knowledge regarding the land reform process. What does the process entail? It can be a reason. That's a factor that can also be written down. You can talk about poverty, lack of income to attend meetings. But these same people that are supposed to have access to land, some of them are poor. But are they participating? Are they involved in decision making? Do they have income to attend the meetings? Okay, that could be another reason. There can also be lack of appropriate documentation. Do we have appropriate documentation in terms of the land that you want to expropriate? That can also be another reason. The willing buyer, willing seller clause. We are saying now for us to buy land from those ones who are the state to buy land from those ones who are willing to sell it. They are supposed to be willing to do so. So there's supposed to be an agreement between the buyer and the seller. But we have got an issue whereby there can be a stalemate, whereby the seller does not agree with the price that is being offered, or where the state can have funds, but there's no land on the market to buy from the seller. So that can be the challenge. That's what we are talking about when we say the willing buyer, willing seller clause. Okay, legal processes are costly as well, because some people, they are not willing to give up land. They are still taking the state to court to say, no, okay, we are not willing, we are not going to sell this land. You understand? So those are some of the things that are taking place, okay? Considering the budgets of the government, does the government have enough funds? Does the government have enough funds to make sure that they see through the land reform? If they do not have enough funds, obviously, it's likely not to happen at a faster pace. The government are unable to provide loans. Okay, they've got their own reasons, unable to provide loans. Maybe they do not have enough funds to do that. Then government unable to provide equipment. They cannot give technical support. So that also slows down the process of the land reform. The training of farmers is costly because you cannot just give people land without giving them knowledge of how to farm. Look at what happened in Zimbabwe during the fast-track land reform. Most of the people, they do not have enough knowledge to farm. What is happening now? Whereas we could have one farmer maybe helping the whole province, feeding the whole province. But now how many people have been given farms, but they are not able to even feed their own families, but with access to land? So this is something that we are talking about, that the farmers should be trained. But however, the training is very costly, is very expensive. Okay. Then 1.3.5, explain the social benefits of a well-managed. Okay. So the question is explain, you highlight, the social benefits of a well-managed land reform for the people living in rural areas. People living in rural areas. What is the state of the people that are living in rural areas? The assumption is most of them, they do not have better standards of living as compared to people that are living in urban areas. Okay, so we are saying now, explain the social benefits of a well-managed land reform for people living in rural areas. What can be the social benefit? The change from commercial farming would create more employment opportunities, because remember, in rural areas, there are more subsistence, which means they only farm to feed themselves and their families. But now when we talk about the social benefits of a well-managed land reform, it can also incorporate or encourage commercial farming, where now they are doing it for a profit, which means when they are doing it for a profit, they are able now to generate income, which can result in them improving their standards of living or their livelihoods, okay, their quality of life, okay. It can also increase food production that would alleviate poverty. Here, think about the concept of food security. We are now saying now, if they are food secure, which means we reduce poverty. That's what we are talking about. If we reduce poverty, then obviously if we improve food production, which means we alleviate poverty. How are we increasing food production? Because we are giving them more land to farm. If they have got land to farm on, because some of them are poor or they are living in poverty because they do not have land to farm on. Because remember, we said that in the farm is unifunctional, which means there is more agriculture, economic activity that is taking place within the rural area is more extractive, yet to be specific agriculture. So the moment we give them access to land, the social benefit of a well-managed land reform will be now the increase in food production, which will alleviate poverty. Okay. Then the other thing would be that employment would decrease poverty. Obviously, when these people are starting to do it on a large scale, that is commercially, they can employ the local people in the rural areas, which means people now are not going to migrate to urban areas. We are creating job opportunities within the rural area. Okay, we are creating job opportunities within the rural area, which means people are not going to migrate. We are keeping people within the rural areas, which will help also the economy of the rural areas to grow. Okay, there will be more reconciliation among rural areas that would bring about stability. Obviously, when they've got access to land, there's likely to be peace. We reduce conflicts because all the people have been given land to farm. Obviously, there's likely to be peace than conflicts. Okay, improved service would contribute to better quality of life. Obviously, as they are more now commercializing, there are also benefits that are going to come, like improvement in terms of infrastructure. It can be road. Also, some of the shops, they are going to relocate to these rural areas because already there's a market. So the moment they go there, obviously, we are saying now there's likely to be better quality of life in terms of service provision and everything. So it's likely that we'll have the better quality of life. The family units would not be broken due to the decrease in rural urban migration. Okay, there's likely to be family disintegration. Okay, family disintegration, obviously, because when maybe the husbands are going to work in town and the families are left behind in the rural areas. But the moment we develop, we give them access to land, they are creating employment, they are creating more income, which means the family remain intact. That's basically what we are talking about. So for this question, I'll end here, then I'll continue with question 1.4. Thank you.